Ty Davis-Price, amidst all the um, issues on the offensive side of the ball, still checked in with 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, moving on to the NFL. The running back room for the Tigers, how does that shake out entering the spring?
No, they're an intriguing group top to bottom, Mark. I mean, John Emery Jr., he had the academic stuff keep him out for a season, and when he was declared ineligible, Ty Davis-Price had that 1,000-yard season, which I predicted on your show last year that Ty Davis-Price would be that 1,000-yard back for LSU, and it didn't look like he would, the first few games there. But once he regained his health, he was able to, and John Emery Jr. is a good friend of Ty Davis-Price, so I think he'll be happy to see Ty, hit the all-time record for rushing, his single-game rushing record against Florida, for the LSU rushing record, and seeing him jump to the NFL. But I think he's going to want this to be his time. I've spoken to his father, John Emery Sr., a lot this offseason, and I can tell you Emery Jr. is ready to prove doubters wrong, Mark. If one simply just reviews his film versus Alabama, and of course this is back in 2020, because of course he could not play any games in 2021, completely just declared ineligible because of ridiculous academic snafus by the Orgeron regime. But if you look at his film against Alabama in 2020, if you look at his film against Oklahoma in the 2019 Peach Bowl, actually the college football playoff semifinal, and then, against Vanderbilt in 2020, where he's jumping over guys, you'll agree LSU have a wonder back on their hands if he can stay on the field. That's academically, that's health-wise as well. But, Emery should start for this team if available, just on paper. But there's twin sophomore friends, Corey Kiner and Armani Goodwin, who are both just powerhouse talents. Armani, we were able to flip this kid from Auburn. And he comes to LSU, and he's partnering up with his buddy from Ohio, Corey Kiner, Mr. Ohio football, Corey Kiner. And these two, they're roommates. They're really good buddies. And Corey's season goes one way, Armani's goes another, Mark. Armani, he has his best runs, and then he goes hobbling off right after a 12 or 13-yard run where you see him at his best, and just had bad luck. But then Corey Kiner, we saw it all. 79 carries for the freshman. 79 carries. He even had a few starts. 324 yards, 4.1 per carry. Both him and Armani Goodwin had 4.1 per carry, but Kiner significantly more carries. 2 touchdowns as well. Some brilliant stiff arms, just absolutely deleting guys into the grass. Some spin moves. He attempted a few hurdles even, like the one he pulled off over Todd Harris in practice. But he's another Tiger by way of Cincinnati, much like his mentor Spencer Ware, a great LSU running back from the past. If some of you OG Tigers might remember that, some of you younger guys might not. But Kiner he's without a doubt one of the team's most effective, celebrated, and beloved players returning from last season, Mark. But there's someone coming to town who has more experience than any of these backs on roster, Mark. Noah Cain from Penn State. He's leading the Tigers now. The second he comes on the roster in appearances with 24, with rushing yards with, I think it was 806 total rushing yards, with touchdowns with 12. And of course, he leads them all with averaging 4.2 yards per rush. Noah Cain comes out of nowhere. Former 5-star Louisiana native, was fantastic for Penn State when he could stay on the field. Set the freshman scoring record there. Noah Cain, he could be that back for LSU. He's already a favorite of Frank Wilson, the running backs coach. He's already been picked out by the Kelly transition team's transfer strategy to repair this tattered, absolutely broken roster. And Noah Cain was one of those huge pieces to solidify the running backs room. But then you got Trey Bradford, a young man who, at his greatest, he caught a 3rd and goal touchdown against Florida to beat the Gators. back in 2020. I don't think that was the game-winning play, of course, because we had to do a lot of other crazy things and survive a lot of other things to get through that game. But I recall it taking the lead late in the fourth quarter. But either way, it was a big play at a big time, and he was a freshman, Trey Bradford, out of Texas, Lancaster, I believe, and fantastically highly touted, but didn't receive too many reps. But he had that big touchdown catch. And then, coming into this season, you were wondering what to expect. And then he transfers to Oklahoma. Okay. But then 4 months later, I think it is, he transfers back to LSU. And he ran into exactly the trouble I knew he would run into. He wouldn't be eligible for the season. And it turned out he missed nearly 3/4 of the season. It was even a miracle to get him on the field for 2 rushes and 11 yards. It was. So yeah, Trey Bradford, I'm really wondering if he's going to look above him and see all of those, John Emery Jr., Noah Kane, Corey Kiner, who's absolute freak of nature, and he might be the third back on the roster. That's nuts. Armani Goodwin, who could also go and start for probably 60% of teams right now as a sophomore, with how thickly built he is. He's ready to be absolutely going out there for 150 plus carries a season right now. He wants that, Armani Goodwin. This is a deep running back room. Josh Williams as well. This young man, he runs violently every time he gets the rock. It's an interesting running back room, very talented, but John Emery Jr. should be starting.
By the way, Trey Bradford had the touchdown, as you just mentioned. It was a 4-yard pass from Max Johnson. That would have been to start the fourth quarter to put LSU up 31-27. That was the go-ahead touchdown that put them in control of the game at that point before all hell broke loose, of course, in the final few minutes, with shoes flying all over Death Valley.